Hello and welcome to the TCF Morning Show. It is Wednesday, September 8th, and this morning I am joined by Boomy at Boomy TCF and Matt Schoolfield at schools underscore 01 on Twitter. I am Zach Loya at Z Loya TCF. The main page is at typical underscore Chicago. And this morning we'll be talking about the Cubs, who did have a 7-game winning streak until we had a show, and unfortunately they lost 4-3 to the Reds. But Frank Schwindel, Frank the Tank, NL Player of the Week. The White Sox are playing the A's as we speak. They are 79 and 58, 10-game lead in the division. Just kind of getting to the playoffs. And Bulls add power forward Alize Johnson and small forward Stanley Johnson. And the college football week 1 recap, we all know we are excited for that one. And then Thursday night football, we kick off the NFL week. We will not have a show before that, so we will have our picks for you. And we'll end the show like we always do with Boomy's Wacky Web Story. If you want to follow us on Facebook and Instagram, just type in Typical Chicago Fans. You will find us on there. Go over to the YouTube page, subscribe to the YouTube page, Typical Chicago Fans. All our morning shows, podcasts, interviews, food reviews, all on the YouTube page. And wherever you get your podcast from, please find Typical Chicago Fans on there. If it is Apple, please subscribe, rate, and review. If it's anywhere else, like I said, just type in Typical Chicago Fans. You will find us on there. Shout out to Connect Roasters. Go over to connectroasters.com for all of your coffee needs. And you better be signed up for the Ian Happ Home Run Club, because he has 20 right now, and that is $5 for every home run he hits towards any Connect Roasters merchandise, coffee, any of that. You get $5 off for every home run that Ian Happ hits. But if you want to just go get some coffee on there, it is great. Like I said, I like it. My mom likes it. Boomy would like it if he liked coffee. I know that for a fact. I know that. But connectroasters.com. Follow them on all social medias. Boys, how are we doing? We haven't done a morning show here in a while, and we haven't talked to Maddie in a while. Maddie vacation.
Yeah, it's been a long time. It feels like since I've been on. So how you guys been?
Doing
Good.
well, man. College football's
Other
back,
than
and NFL's right around the corner.
college football is back, and I think that I need to bet every one of the games. There's too many games, I'd have to say. I know that sounds dumb, but when you think about it, there's just too many games on.
Hard to argue.
I will argue.
I
don't
know,
think
I'm
there's
just
too
kidding.
many.
Coming from a guy
I
who
think
has
there's
4 TVs in his living room,
an appropriate amount, in my opinion.
what I say is that there's too many not to bet all of them. It just is like, you
Right.
think, oh, week
Yes.
1, let's just take all the favorites. I mean, this is going to be easy, and then it's just
From that
not as
regard, in
easy
terms
as
of
we thought.
in terms of sorting through, just if you want to bet, just even anything more than 5 games is what you would consider a large slate of games to bet. If you're betting more than
11
games on a
o'clock until
Saturday,
12 o'clock to 1 o'clock. It's just
yeah, I
wow.
would say that's probably when you start entering the territory of not a crazy amount, but that's when you start saying that's someone who's got a lot of action going. It's so easy on a Saturday to go 15, 20 if you just really,
Oh, yeah.
just start rattling off a bunch. It's one of those. It's so easy now too with like the legal mobile gambling and stuff. It's just I don't know. It's the perfect setup.
Before we get into topics here, I want to say one thing. Boomy, your hat, your shirt, it's ugly. Let's move on. I don't even see the front of the hat, but I already know what's on the front
Don't
of the
need
hat.
to.
But let's move into the topics. Cubs had won 7 straight games, lose to the Reds 4-3. It was a good game. Frank Schwindel, though, Frank the Tank, NL Player of the Week. I love how Fred says it. It's crazy that he's actually like a video game player. Like he's from the video game. Like this is making no sense.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it. Like he's a guy that like gets, when you get through a couple seasons and there's just random names on there, like he's one of those guys, and he's had one of the best weeks of probably his entire career.
Goes to
And
Murphy's after the game.
Yeah, yeah, that's true too. It's just kind of a perfect storm where they're, testing out guys to see who's going to be on the roster next year. And, he took an opportunity and he played really, really well with it last week. And, you hope a guy like that who's kind of bounced around throughout his career can, find a place and continue to hit the ball. Because obviously we know, when guys get called up, there might be that aspect where MLB pitching just doesn't know much about him. So you hope kind of like, Patrick Wisdom, we talked about him early, and even, Michael Hermosillo, to be able to continue that after a short span. So, you hope you see these guys, continue to adjust. And yeah, he had an incredible week. And obviously, you wish you'd had the 7-game win streak, in place of one of those 11 or 12-game losing streaks, but it is what it is. And it's better to see him win rather than lose. So
Yeah, Ian Happ was saying on his podcast today that you got to find another team that has had 2 11-game losing streaks and a 7-game winning streak.
Yeah, good luck finding that.
Yeah, that just doesn't make much sense. Maddie?
We're at that point of the season, and I know we're going to talk about the Sox too here, but like where baseball is just kind of like it's like get to the playoffs, The Cubs season as a whole, it's like, yeah, let's see some guys develop. It's, the Frank the Tank story has been fascinating. How they rattled off that winning streak's been crazy, but at the end of the day, it's like, or they're not playing for shit, and that just sucks so much out of the air. And like, you look on the South Side, and sure we can probably get into them now, but like they're what 10 up, like you said, and that's
79, then 58.
kind of treading. They're just trying to stay
are-
healthy until they get to October at this point. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're tied with the Oakland A's right now, 1-1. 10-game lead
Yeah.
over the Cleveland Indians, which you don't think there's much competition there. It's just one of those things. You stay healthy. I know. Is Lance Lynn still on the IL?
Yeah, I think he comes back next
soon,
week.
though.
And they put Giolito on the IL too, right?
They did. Rodon missed the start this week.
Just being precautious, which is good to know.
Week, but yeah, it's get the arms healthy, get the rotation set up how you want it for the playoffs too. You can start getting some young arms in the minors, like get them a couple innings here and there to soften the hit against the bullpen too. So just they're going to play it smart. I don't think La Russa is going to run people into the ground right now. And that's the key: is stay healthy until October at this point.
It doesn't help, I believe. I can't remember exact, but one of the players on the White Sox just took a line drive off of a bat in the dugout off of his knee.
Eloy, he's fine. He went back in the game.
Yeah, that's kind of stuff like you just at this point of the season, like you said, Matt. Like
the last thing you need is a freak injury. Like that.
Yeah,
but that's why it's so hard to win a World Series. You got to stay healthy through all of it.
It really is, and I mean, like I said, get the rotation set up. How important is that in a short series to begin it? You know what I mean? Like, get those arms lined up and get it how you need, and let's go.
Say what you want about Tony La Russa. He knows how to win a World Series. He
knows how to manage the
team that way.
Cannot deny that.
So in a way, he's in the kind of the perfect spot with the White Sox. He has a good team. Now you just got to manage them the right way, hopefully.
Knock on wood.
Couldn't agree more.
But yeah, it's tough as Cub fans. You say you look forward to the playoffs, knowing the Cubs are nowhere near the playoffs. It's just like, wow, that's it's just tough. I guess, like you said, you have some fun 7-game win streak. Frank the Tank. Young guys are going to be pitching out there. Adrian Sampson pitched tonight. You're going to see a lot of young guys like that getting some chances with the Cubs, which is fun to see. But it's also you also know that you're not really playing to win, so that's also tough to watch. But have some fun with it, and the White Sox get to the playoffs, and we'll see what happens with that. The Bulls. Boomy, who did they add? I can't do it anymore.
They added Alize Johnson and Stanley Johnson today. You probably heard Stanley Johnson's name before. He was a top 10 lottery pick quite a few years ago. Has not really
not lived up to that pick.
Yeah,
He was like
I believe
a top recruit coming out of high school too when he went to
yeah.
Arizona. Like he's
Syracuse, right?
been no Arizona.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but it's one of those like both of these moves are guys you're probably not going to see a ton of, and if you do see a ton of them, then something's not going wrong or there's injury
But
plague. But it's
I love
nice
how
to see.
the front office is being aggressive with the moves, and uh, yes, they're not maybe going to play big minutes or anything, but they're going to fill roles. And it seemed like
Yeah,
that's what the Bulls were bad at doing, is finding the players that could play the roles. Like, we're going to need a bench at some point.
yeah,
So like,
yeah,
Depth is
exactly.
important.
yes, and
I
it
mean,
seems like that's
100%.
the last few years the Bulls had a good starting rotation, good five, but then it's just like you get the bench out there, and it's just like, well, we're done. We can't
Yeah.
compete.
don't ever
Well, not
forget
even.
like the Rose and Noah teams. Even man, they had the bench mob, dude. Like you
Oh
gotta
yeah.
have some help off the bench. You just have to.
And Red, like Alize Johnson and Stanley Johnson don't jump off the page, but like I trust Arturas Karnisovas to know more
Mhm.
about these guys than any of us three would. So obviously they're picking them for a role. They signed them for, they're basically roster fillers because they have to, have somebody, and they've spent a lot of money in free agency. But, the fact that, as of right now, I don't know about you guys, but it's pretty easy to trust the front office. And if they trust that these two guys are going to be able to fill some sort of role, it's better than it felt like in the last regime where they just, sat around and said, oh, we'll just take Cristiano Felicio or, some guy that's been toiling at the end of the bench for the last 3 or 4 years. And we'll just, stick with the status quo. And obviously you got roster spots to fill, so you got to do that. But, hopefully that, there's going to be a couple games where, maybe these guys can contribute and take a little bit of a load off. I'm not expecting it, but if it happens, for the better.
Well, it's not like Vooch and DeRozan are like spring chickens at this point in their careers
Yeah.
either. You need people to take the load off of guys like that. You want your studs and the guys you're really going to be relying on to be playing the minutes when it counts. And minutes don't really matter in October, November when you have a team that you expect to make the playoffs. So you got to preserve people. You play the load management game just like every other team does.
Yeah, it's one of those things that the moves that you make, they made at the beginning of the free agency, is why they can make moves like this now.
Yeah, definitely. That's kind of why they set themselves up the way they, like you said, the way they have, and built their team from kind of the middle out at this point. And it's like they're getting wing depth now. They've got some the front court depth. They've got plenty of backcourt help now. So it's like, all right, now you got a roster to go. You got a good coach in Donovan. Time to start getting excited about that team finally. It's pretty cool.
Absolutely. Been a while.
Let's hope that they get it all together.
Just in time for the East to get really good too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Boomy, how did you think college football week 1 went?
I'll be honest, I enjoyed it a lot. I just thought that there was some unexpected stuff. Like I didn't think there were I know this sounds dumb, but for week 1, like it didn't seem like the blowouts that we're used to seeing in week 1. And I know it's because scheduling changes and stuff and conference realignment and all that good stuff, but like you always, it feels like you see like 10 games where it's like a 60-point blowout. And honestly, that's probably not a bad thing that you didn't see a ton of that. But overall, I mean, starting games on Thursday night was very nice to get, legit meaningful games starting Thursday and then having it Friday, Saturday, and then a couple games on Sunday and then one on Monday. So I thought it was pretty good week 1. I don't know about you guys.
And your
Alabama
NIU
sure
Huskies.
feels like they're going to blow out everybody.
NIU goes to Georgia State,
Georgia Tech.
Oh, sorry, Georgia Tech, and gets $1 million and the win.
And the win. And it was an insane gutsy call at the end of the game. There was about 17 seconds left, and NIU scored to put themselves down 1. And Coach Thomas Hammock calls for them to go to 2. Not a very great drawn-up play. Rudy Lombardi, the transfer from Michigan State, and at quarterback, throws it back shoulder. Kid comes back, catches it on his fingertips, doesn't let the ball hit the ground, and they hold on and win by. I think they had a 61-yarder. Georgia Tech did to win it, and it got blocked. So huge win, like you said. NIU picking up $1 million check and a win in a season where there was a reporter, I believe, out of Chicago. Don't quote me on that, but called the NIU Huskies a JV squad. and I believe predicted they weren't going to win a game again this year. And then they start the season off on the road. And I'm not saying Georgia Tech's world burners by any stretch, but anytime you can
They
go
were
pick up
supposed
a
to be pretty
check
solid this
and
year.
win. What'd you say?
So Georgia Tech's supposed to be pretty good this year.
Yeah. And, that's always nice. Well, I'll cover some of the more local in-state teams real quick. Illinois, after a nice win on week 1, loses at home against UT San Antonio, who also picked up a pretty nice check to go to Champaign after a great win over Nebraska.
That. You cannot lose that game.
No, that's bad. That's tough. I can't remember off the top of my head. Illinois got Virginia this week at Virginia, and Virginia's not great, but that's a tough test if you can't beat UT San Antonio. Yeah. And we talked to Bobby last week. UT San Antonio is not bad, but they shouldn't be good enough to beat Illinois.
Speaking of Bobby, we'll have to say this real quick. He does. He watches film for the team UConn.
Yeah. So he covers
UConn coach.
Everything.
UConn's coach retired.
Well, and actually, there was a whole miss up there. There was an email that got leaked today. So UConn got beat by Holy Cross, who got paid like $670,000 to go beat UConn and beat them very convincingly. Randy Edsall, the head coach, emailed the athletic director to state that he was going to be retiring on December 1st. And the AD just replied with, your services are no longer needed, effective immediately. So kind of a weird situation there.
If you're the coach, though, you should be like, well, thank goodness.
Yeah. Oh, and they got beat 45-0 in week 1 and then lost to an FCS school in week 2. So tough times. And that's the UConn played in a Big Six bowl like 10 years ago. And now
I just don't get how they got so bad.
It's
them and Duke. How did Duke get so bad?
Yeah, Duke lost to Charlotte, I believe.
Doesn't make any
sense.
Not
good.
Maddie, what were some of your favorite games?
We talked about it before the show. When we were just kind of BSing beforehand with Western Michigan, my alma mater, not looking so hot against Michigan, so they started out a little rough, or actually kind of hung around early, and then just the wheels kind of fell off.
That's a tough place to start the season, though.
Yeah. I don't think Michigan's very good personally, though. So that was a little bit frustrating.
Place was rocking for the first time in a while.
Tell you what, I don't know that anybody's going to really come close to Bama this year, because that is a well-oiled machine right from the get-go. And holy shit, did they just shove it right down Miami's throat. But that was impressive. Iowa, I thought, was really impressive. Bunch of close games, too, from teams you didn't expect. Northern Iowa hung with Iowa State. Iowa State's a team I really liked a lot going into this year. Breece Hall at running back, Brock Purdy at quarterback. They got a lot of talent. They've been around for a while. Love Matt Campbell. And that team they're probably looking ahead to next week a little bit. They face Iowa. But then, UCLA absolutely just murdered LSU.
I think the most overrated team going into this season was LSU. Were they 16? Were they ranked 16?
Yeah, they were.
That's
they were
insane.
16.
They're not good.
How about Georgia's defensive line against Clemson? Absolutely dominated that game. Just if you've ever seen a defensive line impose their will against a team like that, it's been a long time. That was a very impressive performance from Georgia's defense.
They also have arguably one of the largest human beings I've ever seen on that defensive line.
They always do. They always have big guys out front. It's nuts. Georgia's always loaded up front.
They have a guy who's like 6'8", 390. They were interviewing after the game, and he looked like a building standing next to the reporter.
Another under the radar upset too was Utah State late on Saturday night. They were a big underdog, 17.5-point underdog. Ended up winning outright against Washington State too. So that was Montana beat Washington, same state too. Washington and Washington State both lost to teams you wouldn't have expected. So week 1 always gets a little bit interesting. Even you think back to a few years ago, that Appy State Michigan game. Crazy things happen those first weeks.
Absolutely. And another one that we haven't talked about yet, Vanderbilt, who somehow is still an SEC school. They got beat 23-3 by East Tennessee State, who is FCF as well. They only scored 3 points against a non-FBS team. That is embarrassing.
What I think is going to start happening, though, is this is going to start happening more and more because these teams are going to get better and better. Especially
South
when,
Dakota State beating Colorado
Yep.
State too.
it's like some of these schools can start, actually kind of, forming sponsorships around the player before he gets there and stuff and, promising that. So I think, hopefully, for us college football fans, that it stays that way.
Hey, were you
Tulane,
guys
another
impressed
team.
with?
They almost hung around with Oklahoma. Damn near beat them.
At
Yeah,
Oklahoma, which it
true.
should have been at
Yeah.
Tulane, ended up being at Oklahoma and still stuck around.
Yeah.
I got to ask you guys. This is always a question. Early Texas looked. I know they were playing Louisiana,
Lafayette. Yeah.
who's a good program, and they
Very
handled
good.
it pretty well. Is Texas looking like it's on the up and up under?
I don't know.
Steve
There was
Sarkisian?
something. There was something fishy about that game in the first place because the line jumped. It opened up at 14, 15 points and shot down to 8, and then it closed at 8.5.
Yeah.
So there was obviously some weird action on that game in the first place, and I think Lafayette also had to deal with Hurricane Ida,
Right.
kind of uprooting them big time too. And that was not an easy situation, obviously, to deal with there. So, but yeah, big win for Texas. I think, I'd like to see them do it against, not necessarily a better team. I don't mean it like that because I do, like you said, Lafayette's a good squad. I'd like to see them do it against a team that's kind of not playing up against the shit like they were.
Right. And they have a decent content. I mean, Arkansas is not a good football team, but they're going on the road to Arkansas in week 2. It's at least going to be a little bit of a test. Say, okay, you did this at home, against a Sun Belt team. Now, can you do this in your own conference? And like I said, I don't think Arkansas is great by any stretch, but it'll be a little bit more of a test for Texas coming off of that win and seeing where they're at. I also thought that Wisconsin and Penn State played the most boring game of the day. No points at halftime. Penn State wins 16-10. I don't know, man. I bet that game was really fun to watch. Dude. It was 1947, but it just didn't do it.
But you can kind of say the same thing. I mean, I know it was a little different, but Georgia, Clemson, that was two defensive teams.
Absolutely.
So, Boomy, did you have any more local schools that you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, real quick. Western Illinois on Thursday night put up a fight against Ball State, 31-21. They ended up falling. They were in that game the whole time. Me and Zach watched a little bit of it. Illinois State absolutely routed Butler. I believe it was 52-0 in the fourth quarter when we turned it off. Like I said, NIU with the big win. They'll have a big test in week 3. They go to Michigan. They have Wyoming at NIU next week. But the only other local one, Northwestern on Friday night, kind of laid an egg against, I guess you could call them a decent Michigan State team, but they got throbbed. I mean, 38-21. It wasn't close the whole time.
At Northwestern.
Yeah. So I don't know what to make of Northwestern. I mean, we talked to Bobby last week, and he said they're clearly the best team in the state. I'm not saying that NIU or Illinois or Western or Illinois State or any better, but that's not a good showing in week 1 coming off the season that Northwestern had, last year. But you got to turn something around quick.
Don't neglect Eastern Illinois. They lost to South Carolina too, Bobby.
With an assistant coach playing quarterback for the Gamecocks too.
Yeah, crazy story there.
And I feel bad because I don't know the Southern Illinois score, but I know that Southern Illinois got a pretty solid team this year. I should have looked that up, but
I think they're ranked.
Yeah, they were ranked at the end of last year, so I'm assuming they're still ranked now. But the state of Illinois, not the best showing in the world. I think NIU was the only FBS winner in the state. But yeah, I mean, still a lot of
all good players go to Iowa and Michigan.
Yeah. I mean, Brett Bielema had talked about it. I was listening to him on Redline Radio, and he said he's like, we've got to keep guys in state, and we've got to go poach some from, Iowa and Wisconsin and Indiana and Minnesota. And every single coach in the history of Illinois football has said that. But, can he actually do it is going to be the big one there.
It just always seems like Iowa and Wisconsin. Always seems like Iowa and Wisconsin's offensive line are just loaded with kids from the suburbs.
Yes, absolutely.
On to the NFL, which starts on Thursday night. We will give our Thursday night picks right now. We have the Tampa Bay Bucks hosting the Dallas Cowboys, the Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers will, I don't know if they have a banner or whatever, how they do it. Boys, I'm going to get right into it right away. I'm taking Cowboys plus 6.5, maybe even money line. I think there's going to be so much around this game. Brady's first time in front of a full crowd, this and that. I'm taking the Cowboys.
Zach, I saw one place. It might even be more than 6.5. I've seen it up to 8, obviously. That's if you can find it. But even if it's at 6.5, give me the Cowboys. I think that Dak is going to be there. I don't. I would like to look at it from a historical perspective, but it always seems like the Super Bowl champions, the first week on that Thursday night. I don't know, man. It's probably just because I've been burned in the past, but it just doesn't feel like it always goes according to plan. And if you can catch that over a touchdown, I think that's the way to go with Dallas. I think Dallas has a lot of talent. But it's going to be a lot on keeping Dak upright there. And if he's going to be starting and he's the one in, I like the Cowboys.
DraftKings actually has it 8.5 right now.
Yeah. Eat that all day.
I'm going to actually fade you guys on that one. I think they're begging you to take Dallas. I think that's why that number's getting pumped up so much. I think Tampa Bay comes out guns a-blazing. Brady wants to say, I'm not done yet. I think Tampa makes a statement early in the season, so I'm going to take that.
But I agree with you, but you also saw last year in a way, it's maybe some kind of times hard to start the season, especially with like Gronk, who maybe not going to be playing a ton starting the season. But like I said,
no,
I'm just hoping for that.
It does seem fishy.
I don't feel great. I don't feel great about it. I'll just put it that way.
Hey, but you can always feel good when Tom Brady is the quarterback of the team that you are betting on.
Yeah. It's hard to argue that. Sox just took the lead too.
Who did?
The White Sox.
Okay. I just think with a team like that that's kind of built around veterans, and like obviously their defense is really good, and kind of like to Zach's point, I mean, it almost feels like they really start hitting their stride like after week 10. And I don't know if I'm just drinking the Kool-Aid on the Cowboys and Dak Prescott, but I think they've added some weapons around him, and I think Zeke's going to have a big bounce back year. That number, like you said, Matt, it does seem fishy, but it almost to me seems like that's so many points to not lay down. So I would take the 8.5. That's just my point. Just week
once you get over the touchdown, I totally can see what you're saying. I mean, once you're over that full score, where it becomes a 2-score cover, then at that point.
Yeah.
But we will love to have football back Thursday night football. Then we have the Bears on a Sunday night. But we'll talk about the rest of the NFL on the podcast. They'll be coming out either Friday or Saturday. But Boomy, you got a wacky web story to end the show here.
I sure do, guys. And you guys might remember this. There was a piece of Banksy artwork that was up for auction quite a few years ago. I'm trying to look at the exact date. I believe it was a year or two ago, October 2018. And it went up for auction, and it sold for $1.4 million. And it was a Banksy painting of a girl holding a balloon, letting it go. And as soon as it sold at auction, there was an automatic paper shredder built into the frame that the auction company didn't know about, and it started to shred the picture. Well, the shredder malfunctioned about halfway through, and it didn't go all the way, so they kept it. The person who bought it is now turning around to resell the half shredded piece of artwork, and it is expected to go for somewhere between 5.5 and 8.3 million dollars. It went from 1.43 years ago to at least 5.5.
That's insane.
Million.
That's just ridiculous.
And if it would have, I don't know if it would have worked and it shredded the whole thing, if they'd been able to piece it back together. But I think the idea behind it was to shred it, to devalue it and say like kind of like a cultural piece on, artwork and everything. But it didn't end up working out. And this person's going to end up, almost tripling their money if it goes for enough. So yeah, could go as much as $8.3 million for a half shredded piece of artwork.
You know what? I'd settle for 7.5.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
That just makes
fucking real.
That makes no sense.
Unreal. That's what I need, is some bullshit like that to happen.
Yeah.
You guys got any art skills we could get into this maybe?
No.
No. We got to recruit, because I have the opposite of art skills.
I've never been good at painting or any stuff like that. Nope, not me.
No.
Well, thank you, Boomy at Boomy TCF and Matt Schoolfield at schools_01 for joining me this morning. I am Zach Lilia at Z Lilia TCF, the main page at typical_Chicago, Facebook, Instagram. Just type in Typical Chicago Fans. You will find us on there. Go over to YouTube, subscribe to the YouTube page, Typical Chicago Fans. Wherever you get your podcasts from, please just type in Typical Chicago Fans. You will find us on there. If it's Apple, please subscribe, rate, and review. Shout out to Connect Roasters. Go over to connectroasters.com. Get all their coffee. They have merch. Follow them on all social medias. You will love the coffee as much as I do. Anything else, boys?
Hey, football is fully back this week. Just enjoy it, all right? The weather's starting to get nice. Let's enjoy the rest of this week, huh?
Let's have a week. We got college football started up. We got the NFL starting on Thursday. Let's have a week. And the weather is beautiful. This has been the TCF Morning Show, Wednesday, September 8th. We love you all.
Peace.